This is the story of how a quiet person learned the difference. Mara Ellis mopped floors before sunrise when a city looked honest. In that hour, the glass towers on Harbourfront Avenue were still, the lobby's marble was cool, and the only footsteps were the ones she pushed ahead of her mop. She was good at this job, not because she loved it, but because she understood promises. The floor promised to hold you up. The mop promised to leave no trace. She kept her promises as if the world might fall through without them. Her floor, though she didn't call it that, was a practiced silence. 8 years ago, talking back had cost her a different job and a small apartment. She learned with scar tissue to be the person who said no trouble, and my mistake, and I'm fine. Silence was her survival. She wore it like a key on a lanyard. On the 27th floor, where the air smelled like cold metal and new money, Victor Crane ran Soliton Systems, a darling of the markets. His portrait stared from every hallway screen. Sleeves rolled, chin lifted, eyes that said he'd never been told no, and had no intention of hearing it today. The gossip among maintenance said the company was worth $2 billion on paper, and 10 times that in ego. The night it happened, the company hosted a grit gala, honouring its own story of starting in a garage. They brought a replica workbench into the lobby and draped Edison bulbs over whiskey barrels. Waiters in suspenders carried sliders and molecular canapes. Mara followed the chaos with her caddy, no stinging from lemon cleaner, careful to vanish behind trays and laughter. Victor noticed her only when he wanted something. He was staging a spontaneous photo at the garage bench, but there was a scuff on the concrete prop floor. He snapped his fingers without looking. You, he said, down here. Crawl. Get that spot. She was inches away before she realised what he'd said. Crawl, the word hung heavy. She could have knelt or bent. She could have asked for space. He pointed to the spot with the same 2 fingers you'd use to call a dog. Phones were out, lenses were up. Laughter tightened. Her supervisor stared at his shoes. Mara's silence wrapped tighter, the old key pulling at her neck. Hadn't silence gotten her through? She dropped to hands and knees. The floor was sticky with spilled cider and something sugary. 100 eyes looked everywhere but at her. Victor chuckled. See? Grit, he told his audience. Everyone earns their keep. She scrubbed. The cameras clicked, and something small and hard in her chest cracked. The crack became a whisper by the time she reached the service elevator. Her hands smelled like a child's birthday. She kept working. She needed the hours. Rent was rent. Promises were promises. And pride, she reminded herself, did not pay the gas bill. At 1 a.m, the lobby emptied. A few stragglers argued with rideshare apps near the revolving doors. The Edison bulbs hummed over the fake concrete. Mara wheeled her caddy out to the sidewalk to dump a bag into the trash compactor and met Mr. Eunice, the night tea seller. He was a fixture on Harbourfront. White paper cups, brass thermos, smile like folded paper. A former teacher, someone had said, immigrated late. He brewed cardamom tea you could smell half a block away, and traded stories for exact change. Miss Mara, he said, you look like a question mark. Just tired, she said, which was 1 degree of truth. He poured tea, no charge. She warmed her fingers on it and felt a foolish urge to cry. She did not. Do you ever wonder, she asked the cup, what your name is worth, if you can be made to crawl? In my village, he said, we tell of a kite string. People think the string holds the kite down, but the string gives the kite something to push against. If you cut it, the kite dances beautifully for a moment, and then falls. I didn't cut anything, she said, trying for a joke and missing it. You cut a thread inside, he said gently. Sometimes the first snip is quiet, the rest is loud. She could tell him, she thought. She could tell someone. But even in confession her habit held. "It's fine," she said. "It's nothing." He studied her. "A question for your pocket, then. When someone tries to put you on the ground, is it kindness to let them learn they cannot, or cruelty to let them believe they can?" He sent her inside with another cup, for later, and she returned to the lobby, feeling as if she were walking into a test she didn't know she'd been studying for. The Grit Garage photo was already looping on the screens. Victor, with sleeves rolled, chin raised, practically glowing. In the corner of the frame, if you knew where to look, you could see the shadow of a person on hands and knees. People would glance and not see her. This was a skill the world had, to see without seeing. She pushed her cart into the restroom to clean mirrors and stall doors. In the far stall, someone was crying, the hiccuping, breathless kind that makes you imagine an injured animal. A woman's shoes showed under the door, one heel broken. "You okay in there?" Mara asked. "Fine." A beat. I got yelled at because I forgot to remove the toothpicks from the sliders. They said I was trying to murder the investors. The voice cracked into a laugh, and then a sob. "Sorry, you don't need my drama." Mara found a spare heel tip in her caddy. She'd started carrying them after watching servers limp off shift, and slid it under the door with a small screwdriver keyring. She knelt and showed the woman how to click the tip into place, hands cupping the shoe like a bird. "I used to wait tables," Mara said. "I know the sound a heel makes when it gives up." The woman exhaled, half laugh, half relief. "Thank you, I'm Lena," she said, opening the stall. She was young, cheeks splotchy, eyes careful. Her server badge said consultant, which was funny in a not funny way. "You saved my night." "Good," Mara said. "Bad night for you too?" Lena asked. The looping lobby video flickered in the mirror. Even not looking, they both saw it. "I saw," Lena said softly. I filmed it. I'm sorry I didn't stop it. Silence was the shape of Mara's habit. She opened her mouth to say, "It's fine," but Mr. Eunice's kite string tugged. "I don't want revenge," she said, surprised to hear it aloud. "I want geometry, the kind that balances things. I work on governance," Lena blurted, "consulting for boards. Compliance, ethics, safety, and something's wrong upstairs. Has been for months. Everything looks shiny, but the safety officer is a signature stamp. And Victor, well," she lowered her voice, "he pushes construction without permits. The new AI lab, they cut corners on ventilation and load capacity. The city keeps scheduling inspections, but someone's always distracted. If there were pressure from the outside." Mara thought of the service stairwell, where a rusty grate pulsated when the server room fans turned on. She thought of buckets. Under a persistent drip, she had filed work orders. "The server room ceiling has a leak," she said. "No one fixes it. We put towels like it's a kitchen counter." Lena's eyes sharpened. "A leak near servers is a critical systems hazard. If an inspector saw that, they'd shut down the floor until remediation. Investors don't like production halts, and if we add footage of the CEO humiliating staff," she grimaced at the word, "it creates an unignorable board event." "I'm not going viral," Mara said quickly, stomach cold at the thought of her face on a million screens. "I won't feed the wolves." "I understand," Lena said, then a formal path. "There's an independent whistleblower line the board must maintain. It's real, not run by Victor, and the city's safety hotline. Anonymous tips can trigger an unscheduled inspection. If what you've seen is as you say." She hesitated. "You don't owe the company your silence." "You owe yourself your dignity." Mara had a different test that night before any phones rang. On the mezzanine, the fake garage bench was being dismantled. A custodian younger than Mara, Miguel, new, always smiling, was wrestling with a crate. It tipped, and a single Edison bulb rolled off the table, arcing toward the stone floor. Without thinking, Mara lunged and caught it. In the bulb's reflection, she saw her own face, jaw set, eyes steady. "You're fast," Miguel said, grinning. "I'm tired of watching things break," she said, before she could stop herself. He nodded toward the stairwell door. "Metal, paint scabbed. You know that bus?" "It's worse. I worry about sparks. I told a supervisor." He shrugged. "They said the electrician is backed up." Mara made a decision as ordinary as turning a key. She took out her phone, not to post, to document. The damp ceiling tile above the server room, the plastic tub collecting drops, cords spidering past, the stairwell grate rattling as fans breathed, the heavy box blocking the emergency exit because someone wanted the lobby tidy. She photographed without commentary, the way a notary witnesses a signature. Her hands were steady. After her shift, she did one more ordinary thing. She walked back to Mr. Eunice's cart and bought 2 teas. "For courage," he said. "For geometry," she said, surprising him into a laugh. At home, she opened her laptop. The whistleblower site asked for dates, names, descriptions. She wrote only what she could attest to. She attached images. In the final box, describe any retaliation or fear thereof. She paused. The word crawl hovered like a storm cloud. She didn't type it. She closed her laptop. She reopened it. She typed, "Humiliation of staff is not a side issue. It is a safety issue. People who are treated as disposable are asked to dispose of rules." She considered sending the video Lena had taken. Her heart thudded. She did not attach it. A story should stand on more than spectacle. She did include one more fact, that the city inspector for the district had left his card months ago after a fire alarm glitch, and that his name was Paulo Santos. She still had his card tucked behind her Metro pass because she liked the blue stamp. She scanned it and uploaded it. "He seemed like a person who believes floors should hold," she wrote, and smiled at herself for the odd sentence. Before bed, she texted Lena, "Submitted to Boardline Plus City. Your heels okay?" Lena, "Perfect, thank you. And Mara, whatever happens, you did something straight." Mara, "Kite string." Lena, "Kite string." Mara slept like someone who'd returned a library book long overdue. The mistake, if we must name one, is that she still thought of her choice as small. She underestimated how much weight a quiet person can move when she leans her full weight onto one hinge. Morning came with sky the colour of a clean sink. On the news, markets chattered. On Soliton's internal chat, the usual memes tumbled. At 9:12 a.m, the front desk called up. A city inspector and 2 fire marshals were in the lobby, here for a routine follow-up. At 9:20, the inspection team requested escorted access to floors 4, 12 and 27. At 9:33, an assistant emailed Victor, subject line urgent, urgent, urgent. At 9:41, someone tried to shoo Amara and Miguel from the stairwell so the inspectors wouldn't trip over cleaning buckets. The inspectors asked the opposite. "Show us everything." They saw the leak first. The senior inspector, a woman with a bun like a gavel, stared at the plastic tub. Drip, drip, drip. "Near live equipment?" she asked. "Temporary measure," the manager said brightly. "How long temporary?" she asked. "Since spring," Miguel said before anyone could stop him. They traced extension cords that should not have existed, found a hot outlet with singed plastic, noted a door blocked by a marketing crate. They asked for the safety officer. He was on a call. They waited, writing. The call lasted an hour. When he arrived, his signature stamp looked tired. At 11:02, the inspectors cleared the floor. "Cease operations in this room until mitigation," the gavel-bun woman said, affixing a notice the colour of a school bus to the server room door. The notice said words like imminent hazard and failure to comply will result in fines and/or closure. It was bureaucratic poetry. It sang in a key only certain ears hear. By noon, the notice had been photographed 17 times by staff who sent it to friends under the caption "Yikes." By 1 p.m., a blog that watched the city's tech scene posted the photo with the headline, $2 billion, Darling server room shut for safety violations. By 1:20, investors were calling board members were calling lawyers, and the market was reminding everyone that paper worth can smudge. Lena pinged. Mara, a single word: geometry. Victor's first instinct was volume. He stormed down the stairwell, demanded to know who had invited government theatre into his building, declared the notice performative bureaucraties, and ordered operations to continue out of a different room, as if the laws of load-bearing and amps and airflow would confuse themselves into compliance. But the inspection team had already contacted the board's audit chair. Lena's quiet nudge, routed not through Victor, but around him like water around a rock. The audit chair had seen the whistleblower report early that morning. The timestamp would later be described as fortuitous in the press. In the moment, it was a lever. By late afternoon, the board convened an emergency call. On it, the audit chair asked a question that might as well have been the fable's punchline. Do we have a cultural problem? No one said crawl. No one had to. The story had already arrived in their inboxes 3 different ways: the blog's photo, the inspector's notice, and a sober, well-written complaint by an employee whose name was redacted, but whose words held more weight than any exclamation in the CEO's mouth. Trading didn't stop that day, not yet, but the slide began. Contracts paused. A big client asked for written assurance of compliance and a remediation timeline. A second client aligned with the first. A partner held a payment. The market did what markets do when certainty grows thin. It recalculated. By week's end, 2 billion was a memory, people said, with the grin you wear when a joke is almost too mean to tell. Destroy is a dramatic word. It makes you picture explosions and headlines. What really happened looked like gravity asserting itself. The floor kept its promise. The company had been walking above its weight, pretending risk was grit and cruelty was culture. Mara hadn't toppled it so much as tapped the card tower where it was already trembling. When the board relieved Victor of his duties, pending investigation, the phrase "that's the corporate cousin of the bus arriving at midnight," they formed a committee. They hired outside counsel. They asked for staff input. They opened an anonymous portal for stories. Most stories were mundane. Missed inspections, pressure to ship, a manager who mocked checklist brains. A few were uglier. On the last page of one memo, in a single line, was the moment with the fingers snapping and the word crawl. It landed with a thud that shook people who thought themselves unshakable. Mara, who had expected nothing beyond the relief of having told the truth, got a request to meet with the audit chair. She brought Mr. Eunice's tea for her nerves. She brought her practiced silence too, though she noticed it didn't fit as tightly. The chair, a compact woman in a charcoal jacket, did not ask for salacious details. She asked about buckets and grates and checklists. "Do you have ideas, Miss Ellis?" she asked finally. "Make a promise that the floor will hold," Mara said. "Not just the marble. The people. It's all the same work. How?" "Put safety on the same screen as revenue," Mara said. "Make missing an inspection as visible as missing a quarterly target. Praise the people who say stop when the bucket is under the leak. Promote someone who knows where the mop closets are." The chair wrote that down. "And the culture." "Stop using the word grit to mean hurt," Mara said, surprising herself with the fierceness in her voice. "Grit is what you need to build something. Hurt is what you inflict when you're bored of being careful." When she left the conference room, the lobby felt different. Not nicer, just more honest. The Edison bulbs had been packed away. The marble was cool underfoot. She passed Miguel, who gave her a thumbs up like a semaphore. She bought tea. Mr. Eunice raised an eyebrow, a silent, well. Geometry, she said again, and they both laughed, because some words help you breathe. At the end of the week, an email went to all staff. It announced interim leadership, an independent review, and an invitation to participate in building a more humane, compliance-forward culture. It included a small line that most would skip if you have served in roles, often unseen, custodial, security, food service. We particularly welcome your input. Someone thought to put that there. She allowed herself to feel that this mattered. Mara's flaw, her silence, didn't vanish. It changed shape. She learned that speaking needn't be a fire alarm. It could be a level, a tool that makes the table true. She learned the humility of asking for witnesses rather than applause. She learned, most of all, that kindness is not a soft thing in a hard world. It is the string that lets the kite push against the wind without falling. On a quiet morning weeks later, she was back to mopping. The city outside was all light and scaffolding. The marble promised to hold. She kept her promise too. She liked the work again, not because anyone gave her a plaque, but because the hallways felt less like places where you might be tripped, more like places where people looked ahead and saw one another. In the reflection of a clean pane, she saw a woman who had crawled once when ordered to. She also saw a woman who had stood when no one asked her to. Both were true. Only one was the shape of her future. Power without respect is only momentum. It feels strong until it meets the first firm wall. Dignity is that wall. When we protect the least visible promises, safety, fairness, care, we keep the whole building from falling. The next time you witness humiliation dressed as grit, refuse to play along. Document what's true, find the right lever, and stand beside the person on the ground. So together you can help the floor hold.